My first experience of the Top Racer series comes almost 30 years ago, in the mid-90s, when I had my Sega Mega Drive and my nan giving me weekly pocket money. I'd save up that pocket money and then go and rent video games from the video rental store because I wasn't able to buy them. And then I would ask for the one that I wanted the most for Christmas, and that's what I would hope and pray for. I rented Top Racer and Top Racer 2, and in the back of my maths book I gave them percentage scores. Top Racer 1 got 70% and Top Racer 2 got 81%, clearly channeling annoying YouTube vibes even in the mid-90s back then. But never mind. Flash forward to 2024 and now the Top Racer collection exists, and this gives you Top Racer, Top Racer 2, Top Racer 3000, which is a game that I hadn't played, and a brand new title, or bonus game as I will call it, because Top Racer Crossroads is a refresh of the original Top Racer game, but with new Brazilian cars replacing the originals. All of the tracks are still the same from the original Top Racer, and there is some polish to the graphics, but it's fundamentally the same game with a swap out of cars, and also a nice little nod to Outrun. Top Racer, it comes from that era where every game felt like you was driving down an endless grey motorway with various different parallax graphics telling you where you're kind of going around different environments. So it might be London, it might be France, it might be Egypt, it might be up in Canada in the snow, and it can be day, night, and also wet and dry in some of the later titles. However, the goal remains the same. Dodge the other 19 cars in the race and don't smash into them too much, and try and win the race without running out of fuel or damaging your car beyond repair. The beauty of this with the original Top Racer and Top Racer Crossroads is that the game is built for two-player competitive action, because a lot of racing games in the 90s had that split-screen approach with player 1 up top and player 2 down below. And they were great because you would instantly be able to get your mate from down the road to come and play, or my brother would be the other one that would get suckered in, and we would be playing these types of games trying to bash 10 barrels of plop out of each other as we went for the win. And this still stays true with this series. It's emulated particularly well on the later titles. I do have a slight problem with the original Top Racer where it feels like it's dropping frames, but on the whole this game is very, very stable and also offers lots of additional bells and whistles. They're really obvious from the moment that you kick up the game. You've got new menu systems that drop you into either arcade versions for battling in the campaign mode or doing local multiplayer cups, or you can take the game online to the online mode, which is where you can create lobbies and invite a player in from a different part of the world and go racing side by side. And I think that's a great addition to have. The other cool thing is that if you go into the arcade mode, there's a time trial option in each of the games too, where you can pick a car or any of the tracks in the games. And if you look at the whole 4 games combined, there's well over 100 tracks there. You can then go time trialling on a race with 19 other AI still to deal with to try and get the fastest time and get onto the Steam leaderboards. Now, whilst you do have extensive campaign modes, and the campaigns on Top Racer 2 and Top Racer 3000 involve you buying upgrades to your car and making them faster and more lively and more stable, quicker upshifts on the gearbox, and be able to sustain more damage and trigger more nitros. Ultimately, the longevity of this game, I feel, comes down to local multiplayer action, of which these games all do phenomenally well, but also that leaderboard integration with time trials, because I was looking at some of the times and I'm thinking, Christ, how on earth have they managed to do that? And it's because they've been able to be so exceptionally precise with slaloming around the AI as they zoom left and right, but also knowing exactly when to feather off the throttle ever so slightly to get round a corner and not take the chance, run out wide and then clip one of those barrier icons arrows and then go tumbling and lose all of your speed. There's also a definite risk versus reward here with top speed of cars versus how economical they are with their fuel. So you can definitely get much faster times by taking on those faster cars, but often they A, struggle to handle those tighter corners and you'll have to feather off the throttle and make sure you do things well, but B, they'll also usually run out of fuel quicker. So if you're doing the longer races, you're going to have to do multiple pit stops potentially, and you'll just need to time that nicely. But usually the faster the car, if you can hang on to it, the quicker the lap time, and that's really where the leaderboards come into their own, because you're thinking, I'm going to have to take the plunge for this at some point and hold on for dear life. Holding on for dear life works exceptionally well, particularly on Top Racer 2 and Top Racer 3000. Both these games run extremely fluidly and very well, and they also run faster, bizarrely, because particularly in Top Racer 3000, you're moving from planet to planet in space, and so you're kind of powering up your charging battery and then really flying off at like 500 kilometers per hour, and you're thinking, oh my god. And the game does convey a sense of speed exceptionally well. Where Top Racer, the original, slightly falls down is that it's a bit more choppy in its frame rate, and it also suffers in particular when you're dealing with gradient. Now, all of the games suffer from this a little bit, but it's more accentuated in the original Top Racer, where when you're bouncing up and down over various humps, it's as if the game can't quite keep up, and so the game becomes slightly choppy, and that does affect your ability to then be really precise and on the nose, getting into certain corners really quickly, because quite often tracks are done in a way where you're going over camel humps and then straight into a really tight turn, and if you miss that slightly and you're slightly out of position, you will clonk a barrier, and that's not really what you're wanting. And sometimes I felt like my problems where sometimes I didn't win a race was more down to the fact that it had become choppy rather than my skill factor, particularly because I didn't run into that problem with Top Racer 2 or 3000, and they run much smoother and actually don't play so much into that really caustic gradient camel hump aesthetic that some of the tracks have on the original. The campaign modes in all three games work very well. However, in Top Racer 2 and 3000, you can get slightly ahead of the curve with some of your upgrades if you choose to spend your winnings wisely, particularly with engine power, usually, because that trumps everything, and you can kind of hold on to low grip tyres and have a gearbox that slowly upshifts, so long as you can maintain the speed and not crash into everyone on your way to the win. So they can be slightly cheated, but then there are now difficulty levels for you to then face off against AI that want to go faster and harder and swerve a bit more. Whilst most of the games can be played in 2-player, Top Racer 3000 does support 4-player races. I haven't been able to test that out myself, but I've seen some gameplay footage of it elsewhere, and it does seem to run nice and smoothly, which is great. I think that this is a series that is going to appeal to a very specific demographic. If you're an 80s/90s child like me, then I think this will be a nice breath of fresh air and nostalgia, particularly as I have fleeting but very warm fuzzy memories of this being a rental game for me nearly 30 years ago, and being reacquainted with it is just like slipping into old comfy slippers, and there's something to be said for that. However, I do think that a lot of people on today's modern gaming might still struggle to see the appeal of this, particularly with the original Top Racer that does get a little bit choppy on the frame rates and a little bit non-responsive as a result of that with its handling model. And while some people will go, I got the ROM or I've got the original, the additional features of online leaderboards alongside online matchmaking I think do give this an extra sheen and polish above perhaps a straight up remaster and dump, and so it really shows that it's a nice well-rounded package. Yep, there's some technical hiccups in there, and patches have come out since release to start to adjust and deal with some of those, but this has really been a nice warm nostalgic vibe that stands up to the test of time for exactly what I remember these games to be: high octane action thrills of dodging loads and loads of cars down endless motorways. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.